welcome. We're just getting started on the talk. So Kristine, you're on.
I'm on.
Yeah.
First, I just want to say how wonderful it is to be here. And I thought that the Zoom squares were good enough. I thought the Zoom squares were good enough. But to be in this beautiful space with all of you and to be sitting next to someone and hearing her breathe. It's just me and sometimes a cat, and just a completely different experience. So I just want to thank you all for being my songbird and for inviting me.
I have a question
Sure.
of our other leaders and people. Do you want Kristine? Is it better if she takes her mask off?
Yeah,
For
yeah,
talking?
better. That's the problem with these intense ones.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier for breathing.
Oh, yes.
And talking. Yeah, and talking. So just an introduction, koan practice is new to me. I think you all, or most of you are aware that Zen is not my first tradition. I was a Vipassana practitioner starting in the late 80s, and my first teacher was Jack Hornfield. And although we made lots of lists, we did lots of studies and sutta studies as well, the koans were very rarely put into our hands. And I also must say that I shied away from koan practice because it was too intense for me. And I remember a few years ago, before I met Chris, that was in 2019, I thought more about what intensity was. You know, why was it too intense? And as soon as I landed on that question, the first thing that came to my mind was it was male. It was too masculine. The koans themselves, the approaches to doing koan studies, which was only in my mind and what I had read, which was also pretty intense, like, you know, shaking fists and all these stories of Zen teachers and masters really putting their students through the test via koan practice. So I shied away from it. And then finding this book was just amazing. I think for maybe all of us to have koans that were written by and about women. It's like an entirely new chapter of koan study for me. So I chose a koan that is entitled Bhikkhuni Habal Singh keeps the precepts. Sure. And is Bhikkhuni the way that you pronounce it? Bhikkhuni. Habal Singh keeps the precepts. Different name. And I chose this particular koan because it was contemporary, 20th century, 1970s, 80s would be my guess. And it also was a Thai tradition. So that was really interesting to me as compared to Japanese or Chinese. Thai is, I think, quite different. I'm more familiar with Thai Theravadan. So I really loved this koan a lot. So I have some notes that I actually wrote on the plane while we were waiting for a new plane in Phoenix. And it's always good to do notes, but forgive me for being a little awkward with a book, and I don't want to refer to the book. How long do I have?
Well, about 12 minutes.
Okay, this is good. I'm not going to do my work
Kristine,
notes.
could you read the koan first?
Oh, yes, thank you.
For those of us who don't know them all.
Wait a minute, I thought we had these all memorized. Bhikkhuni Kabal Singh keeps the precepts. Thailand, 20th century. Venerable Bikini Varami Kabul Singh was the first Thai woman to receive full ordination as a Bikini. As required in Bikini ordinations, she took 311 precepts. A young man who was visiting her asked, "How can you keep all 311 precepts?" She answered, "I keep only one precept." The young man, surprised, asked, "What is that?" She replied, "I just watch my mind." Wise. So I loved this. There's a lot of reflection afterwards, and I'll get into that just a little bit, but I also thought it was interesting that it was her daughter who did the reflection. And her daughter's name is Damananda, and she also became an ordained Bikini after her mother. So I love that this is a mother-daughter precept. Okay, thank you. I also chose this koan because as I make my way towards Jukai eventually, with Dharma Heart Zen, and I'm closely studying our tradition of Zen precepts, and there are many fewer, which I'm very, very grateful for. So I had some questions here. First of all, 311 precepts is a very large number. And I thought, I don't know if I would go towards joining a Sangha if I had to do 311 precepts, but then I thought I would just take my time. And I answered a question or asked a question, why did she, and why does the koan purport that she singled out only one precept? I watch my mind. And I wonder if she speaks of the one precept of I watch my mind because it was for her a distillation of all 311 other precepts. And that all the other precepts control the actions of body and speech, yet physical and verbal actions are expressions of the mind. And there's in here, once the mind is well controlled, all other expressions are purified, writes her daughter. And her daughter also wrote how her mother really did practice the precepts. Like one of the precepts is that you can't sleep in the same room with a lay woman. Of course, it's totally separate. There's no layman in her room for more than 3 nights. And when her daughter was visiting her and she asked her to leave, her daughter was a little taken aback and then realized that her mother was practicing the precepts and very clearly and kindly. And this is where I wonder about my own koan practice. I don't know if it's okay to read between the lines of a koan, to look at other motivations of why Bikini Kabul Singh highlighted the one precept of I just watch my mind. Given her daughter's reflection, she recounted how, given that her mother was the first fully ordained Bikini in Thailand, and that this caused, quote unquote, much dismay and confusion in Thailand in 1971. It was a big deal for, she had to go to Taiwan to be ordained because of the tradition. That perhaps her mother was in some way taking a stand with some measure of wisdom, highlighting what was her one central precept of I just watch my mind. And then I even go a little bit further in my conjecture. I even wonder if she took a stand as a woman who was very well aware of how she was breaking new ground for women of her tradition and her country. By being the first ordained Bikini in Thailand, she was setting a clear example to all monastics, present and future. I read a lot between the lines. 1971 in Thailand was not 1971 and feminism in the US. But there's just something about, and please read the commentary because there's a lot more to it, or the reflection by her daughter. She really did break new ground. She was a very brave, courageous woman to make sure that she was ordained. So the questions that her daughter proposes, which I really love at the end, I love these questions. And maybe it's actually the editors, probably it is. How do you roll all good intentions into one? Which reminds me of Pema Chodron. She has also this question. If there's only one precept, what is the point of all the others? And if you were to watch your mind all the time, would you always behave well? And I thought for myself, I could only watch my mind and behave myself if I had been practicing those 311 precepts for a long time and with great devotion. I couldn't do it now. So anyway, thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be here again and with all of you there in Zoom land. And I'm learning to love koan practice, not just my own practice, but listening to other people, how they're approaching these amazing teachings. So
Thank you. Thank you. That's wonderful. So I'll take my mask off. It's okay. Oh gosh, I can't breathe. Sweet. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. And we didn't talk about the koans. You did send me the one, but I never looked at it.
well, I did read yours.
Well, they go together.
They go together, don't they?
Yes, but we chose them spontaneously differently. So, but they do go together actually. So, my koan is called The Goddess and the Flowers. And it's from, let's see, India in the 2nd century. It's pretty old. It's a story that's taken from the Vimalakirti Sutra, which was written around that time. And he lived, Vimalakirti was a real person, I think. But so this is a story from that sutra. And I love this koan because it makes me laugh some. And it's like a play. So I'm going to read it to you and then describe a little more of the scene and the characters and then the dialogue. But so here it is. The Goddess and the Flowers. During the time of the Buddha, a great congregation of bodhisattvas, celestial beings, and monks were all gathered at layman Vimalakirti's house, debating the teachings together. A goddess was there too. And one day she was so full of joy that she scattered celestial flowers over the whole congregation. The flowers that landed on the bodhisattvas fell to the floor, but those that landed on the monks stuck to them. The monks tried to shake the flowers from their robes to no avail. The goddess then asked the monk, Shariputra, Reverend Shariputra, why are you trying to brush away these flowers? Shariputra replied, because flowers are not proper for religious people. Then the goddess spoke, why shouldn't flowers be proper for religious people? Flowers do not conceptualize or discriminate. You monks are conceptualizing and discriminating. Even though you have renounced your homes for the sake of the Dharma, If you make discriminations, you are not religious. If you make no discriminations, then you are truly religious. Evil, and she goes on, evil spirits have power over the fearful, but cannot disturb the fearless. So those afraid of forms, sounds, smells, tastes, and textures are under the power of the passions that arise from these things. The flowers stick to those who are afraid of them. They fall from the bodies of those who are free from the discriminations that lead to fear. So that's our little story. So I just love this scene. Can you just see it? They're all talking there in this room that the Maltrud has conspired to have them all together. And then the flowers, this overflowing of joy, and they fall off the bodhisattvas, and then the monks are I don't know, it cracks me up. And then there's the dialogue. So I want to say, speak a little about the main characters, and in a way, to help us understand them. And the way I often approach koans, not always, but often, is to approach it almost like a dream a bit, in that the characters, each of the characters I experience as being some part inside my own self. So as I read it, I can relate to all the parts, and with the more difficult ones, maybe I can call on one of the other parts to help me from time to time, that because those are aspects of my own self as well. So the Maltrud was a wise sage, almost a Buddha himself, and he was using a ruse to get everybody in the room. He pretended to be sick and that he was going to die, and so everybody come and pay homage to him or talk to him. So he had that's how he got all these bodhisattvas, celestial beings, monks together to talk about the Dharma. So it was a ploy. And then, but he's wise and uses that ruse to bring everybody to the table. So in terms of our individual selves, maybe there's a part of us that can bring all the disparate thoughts, feelings, and stuff we might have in response to a situation or to teachings or whatever into the room, that can create a safe, contained space. So that might be alive in you. And then there's various bodhisattvas. And bodhisattvas, as you know, have taken the vow not to become, fully enlightened and go off elsewhere, but to keep returning to help all beings until all beings are awake and alive in that way. And bodhisattvas, if they don't understand the teachings of the Heart Sutra and that there's no separate self, they certainly at least aspire to understanding it, because I think of us, we're bodhisattvas as well. But we aspire, maybe we don't always understand that, but those teachings are that there's no separate self, that everything's interconnected, that wisdom and compassion are linked together in terms of how to guide our actions, and we vow to keep coming back to free all beings. So that aspect's inside us too. And then the Shariputra and the other monks. Well, these monks are arhats. They're very wise and advanced. But the thing is that in their tradition or their practice, there's still a sticking point, like the flowers stick to them. And that's that they have not taken the bodhisattva vow, and they're trying to get enlightenment for their own personal liberation. So it's as if they're still grasping. They're trying to grasp onto things, onto having something for themselves. And so these poor arhats, Shariputra and the monks are just really concerned about following all the rules and not screwing up. You don't want to screw up. And that part is in us too. It's in each of us. there is a part that is judging and, oh, if I haven't, if I'm not following this rule, I'm a bad Buddhist or a bad Zen practitioner. Do you ever think those thoughts inside? Like, oh, this isn't very Buddhist. I'm so pissed off at this person. I can hardly stand it. Terrible that I'm thinking that. I'm not very Buddhist, or I don't get those silly forms. I'm not very Buddhist, or I really don't like that person, or I eat meat. I'm and wanting to have kind of be pure in a way. So these poor arhats are saddled with this desire to be pure, and that's part of us. And then there's a goddess in us who's overbrimming with joy. She, just hearing the teachings, she feels some aliveness or liberation inside, so much so that she's not afraid of expressing her overabundance of feeling and just pouring out the love in the form of the flowers to everybody. And I suspect that each of us have a part too that at times just feels overwhelmed with the abundance of life and of joy. And that's important too. So we've talked about the poor monks and their situation and the self-judgment, and they're missing out on the wisdom, the heart of compassion and wisdom, because they're judging, flowers, can't have adornments on me. You know, they're not able to ease up. So the goddess comes and says some things. So here's the dialogue now. Oh, I'm going to back up a second. When inside myself, the character of the monks is more alive and happening and active, you know, and maybe I'm more judgmental, self-judgmental, just having a hard time, and I feel stuck. One of the things that helps is to sit myself down on my cushion, or wherever you might think of, wherever you have that you set yourself down to maybe breathe and center. And I just stop and breathe. And I imagine the eyes of love looking at me. And I try to take in this. And I have three images. There are two people in my life who have at one time or another looked at me with such great compassion and love in their eyes that I can still feel that. And when I see their face, I can take it in. And you might have that somewhere too. But sometimes when I can't imagine them, I have a little drawing, and I'm really not an artist, so it looks like a kid drew it, but maybe it did come from this little young wise child inside. I don't know, but it's of a face looking at me with just complete love, and that helps me to settle. So that's one way that I deal right off when the monk aspects come up. Well, the goddess then goes on, so we got to pay attention to this dialogue. Why shouldn't flowers be proper for religious people, she says. Flowers do not conceptualize or discriminate. If you make discriminations, you are not religious. If you make no discriminations, then you are truly religious. Well, what does this mean? One thing in Zen, there's a thing of kind of having no preferences, being able to meet just what's in each moment as it comes, and to watch your mind around it. That's the real connection, to watch our minds. But what does it mean? You know, flowers are not good or bad, right? They just are. They're being their flower self. For the monks, it was the made-up idea that having flowers was maybe incite their passions or something, or was too joyful or too something. So it was their minds thinking about the flowers and making up a story about them that then caused them to be fearful of the flowers and be stuck to them. But for us and the monks, really, there's no need to control or try to ensure our safety or goodness or purity. It's almost as if the monks are trying to protect themselves from the joy of being alive in a precious human body. Have you ever felt that, where you kind of almost felt too happy or too joyful and you want to, no, I shouldn't feel that, well, take a pause if that happens. It can also happen with other emotions too. So they're pushing away life or grasping onto an idea of what they think they should be, of what they think purity and a good Buddhist is, And so then they can't be with what arises in each moment, with joy, pathos, connection, whatever it is that's arising, because their mind's making all these other stories. Watch your mind. So the goddess is saying that this being present with whatever is arising, whether it's discomfort, uncertainty, joy, is a religious spiritual act. I mean, that's kind of profound. That's a little different idea of religion, right? Or what's religious. But that really being with in a deep way is a religious act and breaks down all that separates us. Well, she goes on and she says, evil spirits have power over the fearful, but cannot disturb the fearless. I kind of think of evil spirits as maybe just our thoughts that we generate, or, they're not maybe even, that's the way at that time they would speak of something like that. They have power over the fearful, but cannot disturb the fearless. So those afraid of forms, sounds, smells, tastes, and textures are under the power of passions that arise from these things. The flowers stick to those who are afraid of them, and they fall from the bodies who are free from the discriminations that lead to fear. So when we're afraid, as I've been saying, of our passions, of our emotions, of our feelings, then we stop and we don't go any further in our exploration. That cuts us off, and that makes the thing stick to us more. Have you ever, been in a situation where you said, I don't like this, I don't like that, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't like this, but I do. I shouldn't like that, or whatever. These are judgments we've made up. Well, don't stop there. Be curious about it. And I'll give you a personal example of something going on for me right now in our co-housing. There's a situation that I'm involved in, and I got so pissed off. I kind of lost it a little bit. I'm having a lot of issues with this situation. I have to work this out. I live with these people. I work with them, So if I am afraid of the anger that's arisen and push it away, push it down, I shouldn't feel that. That's a bad Buddhist. Shouldn't do that. I'm actually not it's going to keep sticking to me, the anger. I'm not going to be able to work through what's going on. So what I'm in the process of doing right now, and will continue, so I don't make snap judgments or say things I'm going to really regret, or shoot off an email I'm really going to regret. I'm practicing with being curious with these feelings, with this situation, and I have to go to my cushion. I have to go to my place of quiet, sit down, breathe, notice, watch my mind, notice the thoughts, the feelings that arise. What might be under them? Have I been triggered in some way? Is there some other concern or feeling or need that I'm trying to address on behalf of our community that I'm being prevented from? What's needed? What's going on? And I find that sitting on the cushion, breathing, helps me to be curious that way and do that. And then I'm hoping that at some point, something's going to arise to tell me what an appropriate action might be. because I do have to take some action. Situation's not going to go away. So in the midst of it, I just keep trying to feel my feet on the floor, my body grounded, feel my breath. And I offer that to you whenever emotions or things arise. Take time to feel yourself. And if it's a moment of joy, can you release to the joy? Doesn't have to stick to you, but just enjoy at that moment. The next moment will be different. Can you enjoy the flowers of the moment, raining down on you, and then just let them fall away into the next moment? So that's my talk. I thought maybe we're going to split up into groups, and I think if we have 15 minutes, how about